They checked her ID, questioned her legitimacy, and called security, all before realizing they were about to deny service to the one person who could end their careers in a heartbeat. The idea had been in the back of her mind for months. It started as a quiet thought, easy to ignore, but the more she thought about it, the more it bothered her. Danielle Grayson had built Grayson Trust from the ground up. Her bank, her legacy. She wasn't just a CEO sitting in a fancy office overlooking a skyline. She had spent years making sure her institution was fair, open, and accessible to everyone. But lately, that promise had been haunting her. Was it truly fair? That question wouldn't let her rest. She had heard small whispers, a few quiet complaints about how certain customers were treated differently at certain branches. Nothing public, nothing outrageous, but enough to raise concern. Friends mentioned little stories. Trusted people hinted at uncomfortable experiences. Danielle wanted to believe it wasn't true. After all, her bank had clear policies about fairness, anti-discrimination, and excellent customer service. But policies were just words unless people lived by them. So she decided to find out for herself. She wanted to see how her bank treated someone who wasn't a CEO, not from her corner office, but as an ordinary customer. Today, she wasn't walking in as Danielle Grayson, the powerful executive. She was just another woman visiting a bank. No luxury blazer, no high heels, no designer handbag, just a simple cardigan, jeans, and sneakers. She drove into the parking lot of a Grayson Trust branch in Indianapolis, Indiana. It was a branch she personally approved 3 years ago. She remembered the ribbon-cutting ceremony, shaking hands with the manager, and giving a heartfelt speech about trust and inclusion. Now she was back, not as the face of the company, but as an average customer. When the automatic doors slid open, the smell of printed paper and air freshener hit her. The lobby was quiet, just a few customers waiting. A man in a business suit filled out forms, and an older woman sat in the waiting area reading a brochure. Danielle walked to the counter where a young teller looked up. She was in her mid-20s, pale complexion, dark hair, and a tight ponytail. There was no greeting, no smile, just a quick glance before she looked back at her computer. "Hi," she said politely. "I'd like to make a withdrawal." The teller didn't look up. She reached for a clipboard and slid it across the counter. "Fill this out." Danielle filled out the standard form, name, account number, withdrawal amount, nothing unusual. She wrote $5,000. Not a massive amount, but enough to require ID verification. She slid the clipboard back across the counter. That was when the mood shifted. The teller glanced at the form, then at Danielle's ID. Her expression changed slightly. Tight lips, narrowed eyes. Something subtle but unmistakable. Danielle noticed it immediately. The teller looked at her again, longer this time, as if trying to decide something. Then, without explanation, she picked up the ID. "I'll be right back," she said, and walked away toward the manager's office. Danielle sighed and rested her hand on the counter. She wasn't surprised, just disappointed. She waited, watching the teller vanish through the frosted glass door. The air in the lobby grew heavier. A man 2 spots behind her had been greeted warmly when he came in earlier. Another woman, older and cheerful, was having no trouble chatting with a different teller. No hesitation, no scrutiny, just smooth service. Danielle had been standing there for several minutes now, waiting without any explanation. Finally, the teller returned, with someone else. A man in his 50s, slightly heavyset, bald, wearing rimless glasses. His name tag read Todd Larson, branch manager. Todd gave a polite but stiff smile. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I understand you're trying to make a withdrawal?" Danielle nodded calmly. "Yes, $5,000. My account, my ID." Todd glanced at the teller, then at the ID on the counter. "Mind if I take a look?" "I already gave it to her," Danielle replied evenly. Todd ignored the comment and held the ID up to the light. Then, in a carefully measured tone, he asked, "Miss Grayson, Is this your first time banking with us? The question was professional on the surface, but Danielle knew what he meant. Do you belong here? She met his gaze. I've banked here since this branch opened. Todd nodded slowly, pretending to think. And you're withdrawing $5,000, correct? That's what I wrote down, Danielle said, keeping her voice level. The atmosphere in the room changed again. Conversations quieted. People nearby started noticing something unusual was happening. Todd turned her ID over. And what do you do for work, Miss Grayson? Danielle blinked, then gave a small laugh. I'm in finance, she said. Oh, what kind? Banking, she said simply. He paused, then, as if doubling down, said, and this is a personal account, not a business one. That's right. He nodded again, then placed the ID on the counter. Unfortunately, we won't be able to process this transaction at this time. Danielle straightened. Excuse me? Todd clasped his hands. We're unable to verify the transaction. What do you mean? She asked sharply. You have my ID, my account number. What's there to verify? It's just a precaution, he said smoothly. We take security very seriously. Security, that word again. The polite cover for suspicion. Danielle's patience thinned. What exactly needs to be verified? He hesitated. Large withdrawals require additional verification. Can you confirm the amount of your last deposit? Danielle stared at him. That's not standard policy. I assure you it's for your protection, he said with a practiced smile. Danielle exhaled slowly. If you pull up my account, you'll see all my deposits. I don't have that number memorized. We need to confirm details first. She leaned slightly forward. Danielle, if I were a man in a suit, would you be asking me these questions? His eyes flickered briefly, then his expression returned to neutral. This isn't about appearance, ma'am. It's about policy. Right, she said quietly. Policy. He offered, perhaps you could provide another form of ID or a utility bill. Danielle gave a short, incredulous laugh. You want a utility bill from my own account? Todd stayed silent. Pull up my file, Danielle said. You'll see that I've banked here since day one. I helped open this branch. I signed off on your training materials. Todd blinked, but said nothing. You might want to check that before you dig yourself deeper, Danielle said calmly. He didn't move. Instead, he pressed a small button under the counter. Within seconds, a uniformed security guard appeared. Danielle felt her pulse rise, but kept her voice cool. Really, you're calling security? We just want to ensure a smooth experience, Todd said, feigning calm. The guard stepped closer. Is there a problem here? It depends, Danielle said, eyes steady. Are you here to help me access my money or escort me out? The guard looked at Todd, who gave a curt nod. Danielle shook her head, laughing under her breath. So this is what we're doing, she murmured. All this for $5,000? She took out her phone and began recording. The movement made Todd tense. I just want this on record, Danielle said clearly. You're refusing my transaction despite valid ID while other customers aren't being questioned. Todd's jaw tightened. She turned the camera toward the guard. And you were called because? The guard hesitated, glancing nervously between them. Todd reached for her ID again, snatching it off the counter. That was his mistake. Danielle smiled slowly. Todd, she said softly, let me introduce myself properly. He froze. Danielle retrieved her ID from his hand, flipping it over. You see this, she said, tapping the name? Danielle Grayson, founder and CEO of Grayson Trust. The entire lobby fell silent. The teller's face drained of color. The security guard's posture shifted instantly. Customers stopped pretending not to listen. Todd went pale. His lips parted, but no sound came out. I built this bank, Danielle said evenly. I signed the approval for this branch. I hired you." Todd's confidence melted away. "I walked in today as a regular customer, and I was refused service, questioned, and humiliated." "Ms. Grayson," he stammered, "I sincerely apologize. This was just a misunderstanding?" she interrupted. "Yes, exactly." "No," she said. "You made assumptions. You decided I didn't belong." Todd's mouth tightened, but he didn't speak. Danielle glanced at the teller. "You saw my ID. You still doubted me. Why?" "I was just following protocol," she said softly. "Then maybe you should ask yourself why that protocol only applies to people like me," Danielle replied. The teller looked down, ashamed. She turned back to Todd. "You're going to call